Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well, and it's great to have Claire with us for a conversation today. So, hello, Claire. Hope you're doing well.
Hey Claire,
Hey Fraser, hey Noah. Thanks for the invitation.
great to have you.
Yeah, it is really good to have you. So, we're going to have a quite a wide-ranging conversation today about a few different areas. But before we do that, Claire, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself to us.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Claire, and I'm into Christian apologetics, which is looking at how we can give a reasoned defense for what we believe. I am also the founder of an organization called Get Real, which looks at questions and objections to the Christian faith that come specifically from the Black community. I studied in apologetics with OCA, the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. Loved it, learnt so much. But as I was learning, I just kind of saw this gap that there are certain questions that come from the Black community, objections to faith that I didn't think were quite being addressed in sort of your classical apologetics model. So I started the ministry and in 2019, and then 2020 happened and it was I guess a trying year for everyone for so many different reasons, but specifically about racial injustice. And so now I'm just working in that ministry. I'm studying a master's in culture, diaspora and ethnicity at Birkbeck University of London, and just hoping to serve churches and ministries and to share the gospel with people, particularly when there are real strong objections to faith.
That's amazing.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
And we'll put the links to Get Real in the description.
Yes, please.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was funny because the other day I was in Oxford for my studies and I actually bumped into you, Claire, which was nice to meet you in
Honestly,
person.
I wasn't expecting that. I just heard Claire. I was like, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's good to see you. Good to see you.
it's always, we were saying before, I wasn't quite sure because you never know with someone's mask on if it is them or not, but I took the punt and it was you. Um, so I thought that we'd start with a couple of fun questions so that people can get to know you a little bit. So
Starting with our favourite topic.
yeah, I think you better ask this one.
Yeah. Fraser and I are big foodies, so we wanted to know, what is your favourite food?
Oh, well, given my Caribbean roots, it would have to be something like curry goat, rice and peas with some plantain on the side and some homemade coleslaw. So yes, a nice Caribbean meal.
Nice. I love plantain. It's so good. I haven't had it in literal years. I had a friend who was from the Dominican Republic and she used to make it. And I was like, we're missing out. It's so good.
We are.
Definitely. Okay, I'll ask this one as a musician. Well, you're a musician as well. But, what's your favourite music? So maybe genre, and more specifically, a favourite song.
The hard questions.
Yeah, that is a hard question. If you can name one.
I don't think I can say specific song, but I do. The genres I like. I do like Afrobeats, and perhaps I shouldn't say this, but I do like dancehall as well. It's really bad, but I do like dancehall, and I like to because I like it helps me at the gym to keep going on the treadmill.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I like. Yeah.
Right.
And obviously gospel, everybody. Obviously gospel. But yeah.
No, that's amazing. Really energetic. What is your pet hate?
I think that's a difficult one. How much time have you got? I'm checking. I think my pet hate would have to be well, maybe when people don't do what they say they're gonna do. Just be consistent, man. Yeah, I know we all make mistakes, but if it's like a routine pattern of like not doing what you say you're gonna do, I'm like, yeah, it gets to me.
Yeah, totally get that.
Let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Well.
And then finally, to help us maybe transition into some of the topics we want to talk about, what is your best memory of church?
I would have to say just the general times I've been in church, and there's just been a praise break and the musicians are going for it, everyone's dancing, someone's got a tambourine in the corner or something. Yeah, just those kind of moments where it's just like high praise. I like those memories of church. Yeah. We're a bit more too conserved for that now. I think some of us have moved on, but I do like that sometimes. Yeah.
That's great. You're from a Pentecostal background, is that right?
I am indeed. So
great times of high praise in that.
Indeed, yes. My dad was a fiery Jamaican preacher, so we had some times of good praise. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so to kind of move into some of the topics, the first thing that we'd like to look at is apologetics. So you mentioned about apologetics being a reasoned defense, and your organization Get Real is looking, it's an apologetic organization, if you were going to kind of label it as something, I guess. So why do you think that it's important for young people, especially today, to be kind of engaged in apologetics, or why is apologetics important for the younger generation?
Yeah, such a good question. Young people are leaving the church at alarming rates now, and across Christendom, not just in the UK, but around the world. And ironically, they have this passion for justice, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. And I think the gospel has really good ground, a pursuit of justice upon. And so I think apologetics is important because what it does, it shows us that the case for Christianity being true is a cumulative one. We look at the Bible, we look at history, we look at science, philosophy, personal experience, we look at the arts. There's so much evidence out there, you can say, that is pointing to the truth of Christianity. And so I think it's really important that we show our young people that it's not just you coming in church on a Sunday and reading your Bible and being told this is it. There is real evidence out there, and there are Christians within the scientific community. There are Christians who are historians, textual critics, Christians in many different, I would say, disciplines. And they, through their discipline, they can see God at work. And so there are good reasons to believe that Christianity is true. So I think that's why apologetics is important. And you can bring your questions to God, and through the discipline of apologetics, see that he can respond to those questions.
Definitely. And a question that I have around apologetics is, you kind of have vast experience in the academic world. I think you've got correct me if I'm wrong, an undergraduate in English literature. You then taught English for 10 years or so. Then you did a master's in, is that in English literature?
No, I did a master's while I was teaching. I did it in leadership. Yeah.
Right, okay, so a master's in leadership. Then you've got the OCA. Is that a master's as well, or is that
program was more sort of, would say, evangelism on the ground kind of thing? But I did a certificate in theological studies at Wycliffe Hall.
Yes, okay, as well. Yeah, and now you're doing a master's as well, another master's. So,
gosh, Claire,
really a very clever person. But I think that apologetics has been known as a very academic discipline, maybe in centuries past. Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that today apologetics and the context where it happens is beginning to change a bit?
Yeah, I think, because I don't believe that I'm any kind of philosopher. And I think philosophy is a huge basis for apologetics as the discipline. However, I think you do need the sort of academic rigor of apologetics, so that you can, in conversations with people, you can see sort of logical fallacies, you can see some presuppositions at work, and you can identify where this person might be coming from with their objection. And so you can sort of begin to understand what they're saying and unpick it and present the gospel to them. So I think in terms of having a reasoned mind to do that, the kind of academic side is important. But I think that apologetics needs to be conversational. It needs to be everyday apologetics, cultural apologetics. So what are the questions people are asking? Like, there's no point in me getting into a conversation with someone about the fine tuning of the universe if their question is Christianity the white man's religion? It's just not going to work. So I think having the sort of academic rigor, but also if there were 50 Christians in every church who were conversational apologists, who could listen to objections and bring defenses for the gospel, not in a a hostile way, but could bring defenses for the gospel and listen to their interlocutor, then I think we'd see, you know, so many more people coming to Christ, coming to faith. So yes, being aware of where the culture is and what are the questions people are asking now is really important.
Great, thank you.
So I know you mentioned that a lot of young people are leaving church on a worldwide level. Do you think that it's because we don't, do you think that the primary issue is that we don't answer the questions they have, or do you see other factors playing into this real problem that we have?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot, actually, because I was answering a similar question for the Unbelievable conference with Ruth Jackson and Sean McDowell, great apologists as well. And I think there are 4 aspects. I'm going to try and drop some videos on this soon, so do check it out when they come out. The first reason is disillusionment. Not necessarily in this order, but disillusionment is the idea that, you know, maybe a church leader or influential figure in the church or some process in the church has really let a young person down. They can't believe the way it's been handled, and or they've been taught a gospel that is not the full gospel. It's a kind of maybe self-help model, motivational speech kind of gospel, and that's not going to carry you through the tough times. So disillusionment of some sort. The second one is deconstruction, which is really the word of the moment. If you just put that hashtag into Instagram, you'll see so many deconstruction accounts where people are breaking down their faith and wanting to find answers elsewhere. And I do think what I'm saying, these 4 Ds that I'm about to say, they are healthy to a certain degree for all of us as we kind of refine our faith and we grow in relationship with God. So I'm not being dismissive of people going through these processes at all. So disillusionment, deconstruction. The third one I would say is disengagement. So again, back to the justice question, for instance, if young people can see that justice can be achieved without the church or without faith in God, why would they stay in church? And so the question becomes then, if Christianity is true, so what? Is it relevant to me? So that's the disengagement. So they become disengaged because the answers can be found elsewhere, it would seem. And then finally, and this is specific to particularly the Black community, for which Get Real exists, decolonization. So coming to the point where, you know, you feel that Christianity is a white man's religion. It's been a tool of oppression. You know, who did Black people pray to before the slave trade? All these kind of things that are quite current questions now. So looking to decolonize one's faith, and for some people, they end up leaving the faith altogether. So disillusionment, disengagement, deconstruction, and decolonization. And we need to be listening. I don't think you might not always get a young person to say, oh, I'm decolonizing my faith today, or I'm disengaging from my faith today. They won't necessarily articulate that. But when we listen to their conversations and we listen to their heart, we can start to think, okay, how do I then answer these questions?
Yeah, that's so interesting, because all of these Ds that you shared with us, I think they just show the importance and the beauty of apologetics, because what apologetics does is that it makes you take ownership of your faith. You don't just sit around and, you know, become disillusioned, because actually you engage in, you know, it's like a whole mind, body and soul thing. It's like a true search. And I think all of us are on a search for truth, you know, in our life. And I think that's something that young people hopefully can really see, you know, that apologetics is a call for you to take ownership and responsibility, and for you to engage in this area, and really like asking the question, is God real, is probably the most important question that someone could answer in their lifetime. So yeah, I hope that through what you do with Get Real and this conversation and everything, that you can really see like you have a part to play in this, you know, like it's kind of up to you to take this call.
That's a really important point. Yeah, autonomy is so important, and that's why apologetics is helpful, because it's showing that Christianity is intellectually credible.
Exactly.
You can give intellectual assent to Christianity, not just emotional engagement with it. Yeah, that's really great, Noah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think going off the back of that, so as you say, Christianity, it does have an intellectual weight behind it, that, you know, some of these questions we can seek at least responses to, even if we might not have a clearly packaged answer, for questions like suffering is a clear example, but obviously no one has the answer to that question on that level. But there are responses that the Christian faith could give, and I'm sure all of us would agree they're quite compelling responses. But Get Real, as you said, has kind of the idea behind it, or the passion behind it, is wanting to reach the Black community specifically, although I'm sure not, solely. But you kind of see that a lot of people from Black majority churches are leaving the faith, maybe not even because of intellectual reasons, but perhaps because of wanting to, in their eyes, connecting with who they are as a person means leaving this religion that maybe they see as a white man's religion, or something like that. Am I right in saying that? And do you maybe want to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, so I do think there is an intellectual side to it as well, in that, if I'm a preacher's kid, for instance, and if you just heard, Jesus is the way, the truth, and life every Sunday, you read the Bible all the time, but when you ask a question, then you're not getting an answer for it, that becomes quite disorienting. And I definitely remember feeling like that as well. So there is the intellectual piece as well, but what you were saying about finding out who I really am, this question of identity, basically, and feeling that maybe the Christianity has imposed upon your identity because your ancestors were enslaved, their culture was demonized, was stripped away from them, and here in comes Christianity, this white man's religion. Then you're going to feel like, I need to go back to my roots. And there has been it is a minority, but it is a growing minority, which we need to address now. But there has been this movement towards Afrocentric religions, such as maybe African spirituality, or Hebrew Israelites, Nation of Islam, Kemeticism. So again, the kind of African spirituality type of belief. And I think respecting the reasons why somebody is doing that is the first port of call when it comes to apologetics. Because if you're just dismissive and saying, oh, it's cultural Marxism, and it's the woke movement coming into the church, and it's, all these horrible things that you can just brush off, then you're going to lose the person. And so apologetics, as you were saying, Fraser, before, with such an emphasis on kind of like the academic side of it, you can fall into the trap of winning arguments but not winning people. And so definitely the question about identity and what it means to be Black, what it means to have dignity when you feel like even the church has got this very wrong in the past and present is a big question. And I'm just hoping to be able to listen and serve, but also not being afraid to say, this is what happened in history, or this is what Christianity is aiming for. There were good reasons to believe that the God of the Bible is a God of diversity. He's the one who celebrates all of our differences, ethnic differences.
It's almost like a call for the church to come back to what it means being an image bearer of God's love, isn't it? Because all of this thing of identity, whether it touches on race or sexuality, or all these things that are current in our world at the moment, it really all comes back to, are we truly showing God's love and accepting people, like you were saying, listening to people, and all of that is very crucial.
Definitely.
And talk about this. Yeah. So obviously we've just I was going to celebrate it, but it really isn't the right word. We've just commemorated the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's tragic death. Where do you think we're at now in terms of conversation on race and racism?
So I think that there has been a shift in people talking about racism. I've seen a massive shift even in the media, looking at adverts and seeing Black people advertising products. It's like, whoa, that's been amazing to see. But I think in terms of conversations, whereas maybe I personally wouldn't have talked about things in the past, I'm more willing to do so now. And I think there's also more of an open platform for people to listen as well, and to engage in the conversation. to some degree, perhaps, not, I don't think just in the church, but to some degree in some spaces of society, there could also be a stalemate going on, which is any sort of conversation about racism is inherently one about cultural Marxism, woke movement, critical race theory, and all these things that have been demonized. And so therefore we're shutting it down. So whilst I think the two things are going on at the same time. There has been an openness, more conversation. People are actually making commitments to do some action to change. But there has also been this polarization of, if you even mention that, you know, you've experienced this racial injustice or whatever, you are of this type of group, and therefore, particularly in church circles, you know, you're going against the gospel or something like that, which is really quite sad. And I think that is what a lot of young people are seeing. Again, back to the social media things I was mentioning before, and I guess so maybe Gen Z and millennials as well, leaving the faith because they're not seeing the church, you know, deal with injustices of any kind, and labeling it as all this kind of wokeness. And yeah, and it's quite sad to see that. But I feel encouraged that I can be having conversations just what we're doing today, and I think we are in some areas moving forward, but then in others there is a bit of a just a bit of a polarization going on.
Absolutely. It's interesting what you said about even, you know, seeing Black people in advertisements now, because I remember the other day I was in Boots and I was buying some plasters, and I saw you know, plasters for black skin, and I was like, flip. I remember a couple of years ago there was this whole campaign going on social media with people sharing, you know, like even down to plasters, there's our skin colors not recognized, and I was like, wow, like pretty awful, but like I've never thought about this before. And then I was in Boots the other day looking at that and thinking, gosh, it's about time, isn't it? Like, and it's like now bringing this into the church, not just individuals realizing things, but really as the people of God collectively realizing, you know, coming in that spirit of unity, and thinking about, you know, where have we not even recognized our brothers and sisters, you know, from different ethnicities. Makes me want to cry. I just think like, wow, like how are we so blind, you know? And how are we so blind? But like you said, like you were saying, it's good. Like it's encouraging that God is moving us, and it's humbling, and it needs to happen, really.
Yeah, I think off the back of that, I think we've spoken before about this, but growing up, one of my a big influence on me was Martin Luther King Jr. and his passion for justice, his holding to account his nation for the amendment they claimed to live by, and his dream for his children to grow up in a culture where they weren't judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And obviously, all of that was done. The backbone for that was his Christian faith that gave him the drive, gave him even the script. You know, often he would quote scriptures like "Let justice roll on like a river,"
and the approach to
and the approach of non-violence, and all of that. But what would you say with where's the balance between, we're seeing, you know, Black people represented in different spaces a lot more, but then sometimes the response to that is, oh, it's actually another kind of racism because that person is only there because of the color of their skin, not the content of their character, for example. So yeah, what would your response be to that, and where is the balance in these kinds of things?
That's a tough one. I think I'll talk from my personal experience, which is that, okay, so Fraser, you asked me a question before about the sort of academic side of apologetics and kind of listed my qualifications. But part of the reason I have studied so hard is because I know that, unfortunately, when I walk into a room for a job or whatever, there is an assumption made about me, whether it's conscious or not, whether it's deliberate, whatever. But I've had that, I've gone for interviews before and had my name called, and I get up and the person's like, "Oh, you're Clare Williams." I'm like, yes. They've got my CV in their hand and that's their reaction. And other things I'm not going to list now. But so which one is it? Is it so when I achieve something, or is it because I have the qualifications, or is it because someone is trying to meet a diversity quota? And if I didn't have the qualifications, is it because is it just because I'm Black? Like, I just feel like I can't win to a certain degree. I'll give you another example. When I was teaching, I would put a lot of effort into planning my lessons and marking my books. It took a while to get into that swing, and any teachers out there, I salute you. But I remember on 2 separate occasions, different colleagues said to me, "Oh, the kids listening to you because you're Black," because it was a multi-ethnic school, quite a few Black children in there. And I just thought, what? Maybe to a certain degree there was a sort of familiarity, I don't know, but that just completely erased all of the hard work and diligence that I was doing as a professional. Do you see what I mean? So I think it's difficult, and in terms of creating opportunities or making opportunities where ethnic minorities can have access to things that they probably formerly didn't. You got to think about it like this: no one goes to the doctor if they're not sick. I think Jesus said it himself: is that the sick who need a healer. Okay. If a group of people have been marginalized and not been given access to opportunities, then it would make sense for the opportunities to be made available, or not even just made available as in, here, take this, do nothing about it. Here is like a sense of entitlement. But sharing information. So for instance, in my secondary school, it's quite a tough one in West London. And it was by chance that my head of sixth form took us on a trip to Oxford. And I was 16, 17 by the time I'd heard about anything to do with Oxford, anything to do with Oxbridge and the sort of maybe more elite universities, and didn't know anything about it. And perhaps that kind of thing where maybe ethnic minorities have been maybe held down by a culture of low expectations, making information clearer and what is on offer clearer. It's only when I saw Oxford, that's when I started to have ambition to go there, and by God's grace I got in. Do you see what I mean? If I didn't see it, if no one told me about it, because there is also an assumption that perhaps, a little Black girl like you will never get in anyway. And I had a teacher definitely suggest that to me, then you're going to have a problem. So I think it is a fine line. I'm not saying just to hand, things over to ethnic minorities for the sake of it. I don't think that's what anyone's saying. And I think anyone who is an ethnic minority would be like, no, I want you to employ me for me and the qualities I have. I don't think anyone's asking for that, just to be handed anything on a plate. But making sure that there is equality of access and opportunity, I think, is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that response and for sharing, some of your experiences as well. And it's so encouraging to see how you are walking that out. You are going to the top levels of, education that you can in order to bring this message to your own community. And I think, to me, that is the Christian thing to do. That's where we as Christians should be. And off the back of that, kind of thinking about everything that the last year has brought into light and brought into conversation, and some of maybe the attitude it's brought up in people, and the responses that it's brought up. What do you think that we as Christians, and maybe more broadly the church, can learn from some of the lessons of the last year?
I would say, I think we can learn that just because you might see someone going about their life maybe really happy or just getting on with things, it doesn't mean that they haven't experienced, in this case, like racism. It doesn't mean that. And when such a person tells you that's been their experience, not to just fob it off, but to actually listen. And I think we have, as the church, learned to listen a lot more. The amount of podcasts, panels, webinars, loads of things have happened, blogs, everything. I've seen churches do, whether that's Black majority churches, white majority churches, multi-ethnic churches, really putting in the space and the platform to discuss these things. I think we're doing better at listening. I think the next stage would be, now what is the action going to be? But yeah, I think it's been tough. And I think we were saying this before, that as Christians, if we believe that God has given us grace, we need to be sharing that grace with one another to have difficult conversations, you know. Not everything I say is going to be, you know, palatable. Not everything you say is going to be palatable. We need to have the grace to commit to the conversation and go where it leads to the very end, because it's very easy to just have platitudes and, you know, we're committed to this, but they're not seeing anything. And sadly, I have spoken to a few of my friends who are in maybe multi-ethnic churches, and my Black friends in multi-ethnic churches, and they, sadly, some of them have said that they've heard lots of conversations, particularly last year, but things are still pretty much the same, and just this real sense of disillusionment setting in, which has been quite sad.
Gosh. Yeah, so this kind of ties in with the previous question, but can you tell us what your dream for the church would be or is?
Oh, I guess it's what as relates to racial justice.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in general, but
yeah, I guess
obviously
like,
with your ministry and racial
like
justice,
apologetic, young people, racial justice. Yeah,
I mean, I think that the dream would be to actually use what we have in our worldview to tackle these tough questions, whether it is a question of racial justice, environmental justice, whatever the question is. Because you mentioned it before, I think it was Noah, you mentioned before, the Imago Dei, the fact that we are made in the image of God, that is a unique claim to the Christian faith, that we are image bearers. I think that, that's the phrase that you said, we are image bearers. And that gives us, oh my gosh, so much explanatory power for why it is that we care, why it is that people pick up, you know, a banner and go to protest, why it is that people sign petitions, why it is that people will picket, or why it is that people will lament and march. There's something about us, we bear the image of God, and that's where our human dignity comes from. And so then we can look at the whole question of morality, the moral argument, for instance, you know, if the universe came from nothing, for nothing, by nothing, then nothingness can't give us value. That's from Adam Coleman at the True ID podcast, a brilliant African-American apologist. And so there's so much within the Christian faith that grounds our longing for justice, our search for identity, our longing for, intellectual rigor for what we believe. And apologetics really does do that. And as someone who, as I said before, kind of went through a phase where I was questioning things and wasn't getting, you know, what I thought were satisfying answers, doing apologetics has really, really helped me. Maybe that was my deconstruction phase, you know, going through the whole apologetics training and then coming out the other side. So yeah, I think that we have an opportunity as churches to delve into the world of apologetics and use that resource along with loving conversation to answer people's questions. And I think it's so important. It's so important.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just as you were talking, I was just thinking about this passage in Ephesians, where I think I'll just read it quick, but this encouragement in Ephesians 5, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness. Like what you were saying, you know, with this value that comes from our intrinsic identity, you know, as children of God, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret and that. And then it says, wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. just seems like such a relevant message, especially with this whole issue of justice. You know, it's time for us to wake up and to do that in the righteousness and the truth of the gospel, not in line necessarily with what society is doing around us, although of course we can take part in some of that, but really to know that we have this, just this, like you were saying, this grace from God and this authority and love from God to wake up and to change society around us. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit random, but I was just thinking.
No, it's great. Yeah, I like that. Wake up, let's wake up.
Yeah.
There's so much, and like when you look at Jesus's ministry and you look at how he tackled questions that were leveled at him, he was, you know, a really clever guy. he managed to like dig out the presuppositions that were behind questions. He lovingly dignified the person asking the question, challenged the religious elite at the time. There's so much in terms of the Christianity being existentially satisfying, but also being intellectually robust and logically consistent and true. There's so much, it's both and I just think the church could really do with just engaging with apologetics. And you know, you don't have to be William Lane Craig.
That.
I know you don't have to be William Lane Craig, but there's so many resources out there, little courses on online and stuff that you can get involved in.
Yeah, can you maybe just give us a couple of these resources that we can link in the description?
Sure. So I would definitely check out the Jude 3 project. It's an African-American apologetics ministry run by Lisa Fields, a fantastic woman. She's just brilliant. So many podcasts, so many resource videos. She does this thing called Courageous Conversations, where she brings theologians, apologists, from both progressive and conservative theological leanings and gets them to have conversations about different topics. Her podcasts are great. William Lane Craig as well on YouTube. He's got this, if you type in Dr. Craig videos on YouTube, you should see like this animated playlist of videos that he uses to explain the fine-tuning of the universe, the cosmological argument, moral argument from mathematics, all these type of things. Really good little videos. Great book by Rebecca McLaughlin called Confronting Christianity, 12 Hard Questions for the World's Largest Religion. Brilliant. The way she writes is so clear. And another one that's just come out as well, a great evangelist. I've seen this guy in action. He's absolutely brilliant. Simon Edwards. And he's written a book called The Sanity of Belief, which I think is really an interesting title. Yeah. Sanity of Belief, why faith makes sense. So get that book as well. They're really accessible titles, and so many more. Amy Orr Ewing's Why Suffering. There's just so much out there. Another online ministry called Capturing Christianity. He's a bit more of a philosopher. I think his name's Cameron. But yeah, so many things out there. And obviously when you start searching, it will link you to more things. But we have an opportunity, and I just think we need to take it.
Amen. Thanks so much for this. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. And if you are part of Consecrate Youth and you're watching this, then a lot of the books that Claire mentioned we do have as part of our library, so get in contact and you can borrow them. And obviously we can you can search up the podcast as well to have a listen to them. So Claire, thank you so much for being with us today. It's really been a pleasure. And you know, Jesus did say that the path that we have to walk as Christians is a straight and narrow one, and it's really encouraging to see how you're doing that in so many different ways. So thank you for being with us and for sharing your wisdom today.
Well, thank you guys for the invitation. I hope it was helpful, and it'd be good to engage again sometime soon.
Absolutely, it certainly was helpful. Thank you so much.